Hey everybody, welcome to Love and Reload, the voice of the relocation industry. I'm your host, Ben Cross, and I'm so blessed and honored to be here with my good friend, the chief of the EPA's FERC Federal Employee Relocation Center, Mr. William Wiggins. How are you, sir?
I am good, Ben. How are you doing today, man? Good to be back on the show. Good to see you again.
It's always good to be here with you. You're such a good friend and mentor for me, and it's just great to see you, man. Great to see you.
It's all good, man. I love it. I love chatting with you. I feel like I told you before. I feel like I've known you like half my life.
Yeah, seriously, which would make me really old. Anyway, so Mr.
Boom! Right off the back, man.
No. I'm kidding, man. No, but so William, where in the world are you right now?
I'm actually in Cincinnati, Ohio. It's a little bit of snow, but nothing like I hear about Tim and WNY. So yeah. I feel pretty good to be here in Ohio. It's not bad. We have pretty good weather overall compared to some places in the country.
Oh my goodness, the Northeast is getting pounded right now. Tim, shout out to you. Stay warm, my friend. Grab a shovel, get out there. You could do some driveways for probably $15 a pop. So get out there, make a little money. Where else is everybody coming to us from? Let's see here. Check in. Let us know who you are, where you are, what you're up to. Michael Quigley, hello from Ace Relo, Silicon Valley. What's up, Quigs? Good to see you, buddy. Stacy Huff, hi, William and Ben. Awesome. Everybody hit that like button real quick. Leave any comments or questions you have in the comments there. We'll make sure to get to everybody. Erica, what up, boo? Hello from Ohio.
From Ohio, hey. OH.
Look at Erica, got the Jamaica. She's got the Jamaica picture on there. Erica and Christina Blondheim, their travel blog. They need to do a travel blog together. It's incredible. Alan King, hi, Ben and William, checking in from Germany. Hope you had a great weekend. Look at us in Germany. Val coming in from Deluxe, checking in, representing the beautiful Midwest.
Nice.
Dano.
What up, Dano?
Dano McCoy, all the best guys. Dano, what's up, Dano? Good to see you, brother. Beth McSkimming, hi there. Beth from Chicagoland.
Wow, I wonder how's the weather's there.
Yeah, how's everything in Chicago, Beth? Let us know. Erica just got finished shoveling snow. Girl power. Get it. Erica, do not sleep on Erica. Erica is tough. I'll tell you what. Jack, hi, Ben and William from Philly. What's up, Jack? All right, so I want to get into a bunch of things here. I want to talk about the FERC. Last time you were on the show, we coined the term FERC-alicious.
Yes, FERC-alicious, man. I still haven't got the T-shirts yet. I'm still working.
You still haven't reached out
on the T-shirts
to my firm to launch our global FERC-alicious campaign, but we're going to do that. I might even do that pro bono for you guys. But look at my dad checking in here. What's up, Dad? Love you, man.
Hey, Dad.
Tulsa, wishing I was in the Caribbean. Me too. Yeah, he loves to go snorkeling down there. Beth Cole, 12 inches of snow heading into the deep freeze this weekend. Oh, my goodness. Beth, you're killing me. Anyway, so I want to talk about the FERC. I want to talk about federal, employee relocation. I want to talk about, how it may differ from some of the other companies out there offering it and how it's delivered. I want to talk about you. I want to talk about your story, how you got to where you are, maybe some of the challenges that you faced, because you got a pretty cool background.
Thanks, man.
And then maybe just kind of chop it up a little bit. So let's see where it takes us, huh?
All right, sounds good.
Also, before we get into it, we also have a sponsor real quick doing our 8 weeks of giving. So before I forget, because this has been a lot of fun, go ahead and enter to win. Go to loveandreload.com/community. Can we throw that little up there, that little banner? loveandreload.com/community. Enter your name, your info, and you'll be entered to win. I think we're giving away 2 bottles of wine every week. For the next 6 weeks. Yeah, so we're just trying to take care of people, showing some love, right?
Especially during these cold wintry times, some wine and some relaxing. That sounds good, man.
Yeah, wines and podcasts, goes together. Janet Turner picks them out, looking good and looking forward to hear what you have to share. Our good friend Hosea Botley. Hello, Ben and William. How about them Cowboys?
Cowboys, yes.
Oh man, our Cowboys were so bad.
I was gonna say, but that's sort of a sore spot right now, isn't it? The Cowboys.
They were so bad this year.
It kind of hurts a little bit to talk about that. We'll leave that for the next time we get together.
Oh my goodness, we got Dubai checking in.
Bring the wine though. We're gonna talk about the Cowboys.
There we go. We're gonna need it, right?
Yeah.
Jason Rollins, hey Ben and William, Express Corporate Housing checking in from the snowy Foxborough. Let's see here. We're also taking the game recommendations on the Super Bowl coming up. Mary Lee, hello, Ben and William. I am so glad Minnesota's getting a break from the snow and other states get to shovel. Victoria McCullers checking in. Nice to see you, William.
Hi, Victoria. Congratulations to you, by the way. Too.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Good for Victoria.
Good.
Kevin, go ahead, sir.
I would just say good people. I like Victoria. She's like a really good person. Haven't met her in person, but she's like a great person.
Yeah, she is. Yeah. I haven't met her in person either. I can't wait, actually. I got Bears fans coming in, rooting for Tampa Bay. Everybody's going TB12 here. That's nice. All right. Alan, First Federal Credit Union, my favorite bank. Word. All right, so let's hop into it real quick here. So, William, give everybody who doesn't know you. I know a lot of people know you, but give those of us who don't know you maybe just a real quick kind of background on your life and how you found your way into mobility.
Yeah, it's like the first time I came up, like I say, I'm always interested to learn how people get in relocation because, you don't go to school for it, it's something we tend to find ourselves into and pretty much the same thing happened with me. The big overview of my life is I spent, at 17 years old, I joined the Marine Corps and I spent 20 years in the military.
Now, William, I got to ask you, what made you join the Marine Corps? I'm always curious when people make that commitment. What was it?
I graduated from high school when I was 16, so I graduated a year early, and we had just moved. We had just relocated, speaking of relocation, from Lima, Ohio to Cincinnati, and I had to figure it out. I couldn't go to school right away, and I just had to figure out what else I wanted to do with my life, and so I wanted to join the military. And the Marine Corps, honestly, I'm not going to lie, it's going to sound kind of cheesy, but because it wasn't, I'm serious, it's going to sound kind of cheesy. But it was the commercials, they had the dress blues and the uniforms, and they showing the dude with the sword,
the saber, doing his thing.
I was like 17 and impressionable, so I'm like, I want to do that,
Playing with swords.
And, I'll twist them. I didn't get one till much later. I found out I didn't get one for just going in. I was disappointed, but I was just because I really didn't have, my family didn't have a really military background, and my mom had a brother that was in. But that, that story has didn't have a good ending to it. And so really nobody in my family really had joined. So it was something that I just did on my own. And I figured it'd be a good way to see the world. I grew up in a small town, so I really wanted to see the world. And I wanted to go to school. I wanted to go to college, and obviously the military was a way to help pay for that later on down the road. And I just went in at 17, was in my first duty station at 17 years old in Okinawa, Japan, and ended up going on embassy duty. Spent a couple years out in California. Went on embassy duty. So I went to Quantico, Virginia for embassy school for the Marine Corps to protect embassies all over the world. I spent a year in Beijing, China, right after Tiananmen Square. If you go back that far, you may be too young to remember that. But it was this whole thing in Tiananmen Square where it was a pro-democracy crackdown. I was actually there on embassy duty during that time.
You were in China during Tiananmen Square?
Yeah, I was there. Yeah, I was there back in '89. Wow. Yeah, so I'm dating myself now because I was back in 1989. I was there, and then I left there, and I went to Helsinki, Finland. Got out the Marine Corps after about 6.5 years. Started going to school and decided I still kind of missed it. I still kind of missed the military. I thought when I was out, every Marine says this, you're getting out, you're like, I'm short, I'm getting out, I ain't never coming back to this. And then you get out and you realize, man, I missed the camaraderie, I missed the people, I missed going places, I missed the excitement of it. And so I ended up joining back into the Army National Guard because there wasn't no Marine places where I was at where I could go drill with. So I ended up joining the Army National Guard, ended up doing 14 more years in that. So I got deployed a couple of times right after 9/11 happened. Got deployed after that to the airports for about 9 months, and then came back from that for about a few months, and then got deployed again to the Middle East. And I was deployed the second time for 19 months. Now,
were you married at that time, or was that before you were married?
When I was in the Marine Corps, I was not. When I was in the Army National Guard and after 9/11 happened, I was married to Alice, who you know well. And that was a challenge too, because, she didn't know me in my Marine days. I mean, she knew me, but we didn't have no connection as far as a relationship or anything. She just knew of me, and that's it. We knew each other's families. But so it was a completely different world, I think, even for her when I got deployed. For me, it was like normal. For me, it was like, hey, I get to go somewhere cool,
Yeah,
for her, it was like, wait a minute, how does this work? What do you mean you're going away? You don't know when you're coming back. You don't know. You can't tell me a lot of stuff, what's going on. And for me, it was like,
she stayed back.
She stayed back home.
Back home.
Yeah. While I went off
with your son, William.
Right, with William.
And then you went to Finland or wherever.
Right. Well, to the Middle East. Well, first time to the airport for about 9 months. And then when I came back from that, from 2003 to 2004, I was in Kuwait and Iraq and some places and everything. And so I was gone that second time for a whole 19 months. It was over a year and a half.
Wow.
That I was actually gone.
You know, it's interesting in our business, right? We talk about the spouses and we talk about the challenge of relocation on our spouses as I'm going through it this week. And me and my wife are, you know, really learning about each other right now. And
I get it.
I'm learning how much she hates me. But no, I think it's interesting though, because I mean, at least our transferees are taking their families with them for the most part.
Yes.
But I think we forget the sacrifices that our service members and our service member families are making when they're not with their, you know, husband or wife as they're on deployment. And they're staying home. And let me ask you, do you think it's easier or harder? Because on the one hand, you don't have to uproot your family. You're staying home where presumably you have family support, but it's totally breaking it up for that time period. What do you think?
You know, I would say it's tougher. I mean, obviously you want to take your family to a combat zone. You know, that nobody wants to do that. That's not advisable, right? But I mean, but if you in the military and you're married, and you get relocated somewhere, because they get obviously we get relocated as well. And then you're not for deployments, but for other duty stations. I think it's fine. You know, the Marine Corps kind of had a policy, you know, if we wanted you to have a wife and kid, we'd have issued you one. So that was the Marine Corps philosophy. So when I was in the Marine Corps, I never had any intentions of getting married or having kids or anything like that, because it just wasn't conducive to it. But in the Army and the Guard, it was a little bit different. And I tell you, I think it was tougher because for Alice, see, the first time I went, I didn't go really far. Mm-hmm. I just went to the Dayton airport, but it was the first time she had ever experienced anything like that. And so it was really a struggle for us. Like you're talking about you and your wife right now.
Yeah.
It was really, and for me, it was almost like, I thought it was comical because I'm like, I'm just like an hour or so away. This is not a big deal. Trust me, this is not a big deal.
Right.
But for her, it was a complete change of life, having to be without me saying, okay, my troops kind of come first in a sense, as far as the mission and what we got to do. And, you know, I love you and everything, but I got to do what I got to do. I signed up for this. And I think that was a harder adjustment than the second time, which like within 6 months of, you know, from each other, then I went overseas. That I figured, oh, we're done. This is not going to work. This is really going to fall apart here, because now I'm over in another country. I'm tens of thousands of miles away. I can't have any really real communication with her. And honestly, she was a trooper. I mean, I think that first experience kind of helped her understand the difference between civilian life and military life. I think that was an eye opener. And then by the second time I got deployed and actually went overseas and was really gone away, man, she was such a trooper. You know, she's part of our family support group. She was call all my soldiers and their families and check up on them and everything. And she was just awesome.
Well, I want to stay here on this personal level just for a minute. Just we're going to get to some of the more, you know, relo stuff, but I think this is so interesting because at the heart of what we do on a day-to-day basis is jobs managing relocations for employees all over the world. You know, these are individuals and individual families, and I want to just kind of keep it micro here for a minute because your experience is so interesting and relevant, frankly, to what I'm going through and to the process that we're managing every day for so many people. And so I guess I would ask you, I mean, you know, what did you learn in that process maybe that we could kind of glean some advice from? Like what did you learn about, you know, how to be a good husband through that, how to be a good, you know, how to keep your family together, right? I mean, I think this is something that we all, you know, want, right? So what kind of advice maybe would you give me and other people that are relocating?
You know, that is a great question, Ben, because doing that, especially like that second time around, I think, you know, they say a deployment would either make a bad marriage fall apart or a good one stronger. Mm-hmm. And I felt we were in that latter group. I was kind of a little concerned after that first time because it was new for her. It wasn't new for me. I wasn't making the adjustment. It was more on her end of making the adjustment to me being gone. I was used to being gone. I've been used to being gone from my family for years. So that wasn't a big deal for me. When I say my family, I mean like my mom and siblings and things like that, not necessarily a wife. But I tell you, I think what we both learned about each other is that we both was committed to our relationship. We're both obviously committed to what we both had to do. The role that she played, because she was still a working mom and at this point, more or less a single mom, but working and taking care of things and even looking out for my family in some respects. And then, for me, she learned how important this was for me and what I did, and how important my soldiers was like a whole nother family to me. They were like a family for years, and having to understand and share that and be willing to share that and everything. And I tell you what, and I've grown to appreciate her so much more because she did take all that in. She did take in being the role of mom, wife, caretaker, looking after even some of my other, people within family and stuff, making sure I had what I needed, not burdening me with things that I have to be concerned about while I'm trying to focus on a mission and focus, because I was in charge of a lot of soldiers myself. So not kind of, making me feel like pressure back home for anything. And I come to appreciate her so much. And she held things down at home. I didn't have to worry about things not getting done. So when I came home, it wasn't like our house was in disarray. Our lives were in disarray. Things were, was pretty good. So it just made me appreciate her so much more. And if you notice us now, if you see us on social media, we're hardly ever apart.
Yeah.
we're
even you're always, honestly, I give you so much credit as a husband and as a partner, with her, because you're always reminding me too, to give her equal mention and equal billing and everything. Yeah. And I respect you so much for that, because you're always making sure that she's getting full credit for everything, and that's a good man. Hey, leave these comments here if you got questions, comments, whatever. We got a few coming in. I'm going to read a few of them. I also love to know your questions for William. We're going to get into the relo side and kind of his career now and what he's doing now, and a little bit about the EPA's FERC program. But love to answer your questions as well. We've got people tuning in here. Alan King, during my Iraq tour, we could only write a one letter page to family. It would take 2 weeks to get to them and 2 weeks to get back, but there was nothing more exciting than seeing that blue envelope in mail call when you came back from a 24-hour shift. Yeah. Wow. Dano says, being a military brat, my dad did 26 years in the Army. I totally understand. People are really enjoying this conversation on a personal level. Huge kudos to your wife, and thank you for your service. Valerie says, my dad also says, thank you for your service here.
Sure. Thank you.
Joanna, everybody. I think it's one thing, we talk about service and we see a little commercial.
Ooh, simplify.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
And it's another thing when we hear somebody talk about it from a personal standpoint. Henri from France, Joanna here checking in here, saying, yeah, this is great stuff here. There's usually a great spouse network in the military, depends on the branch. So I was British Army.
Awesome.
All right, so now you went through your military history and everything, and I appreciate you sharing that and being so candid. How did you take your personal experiences in relocation, being on deployment or whatever, and parlay that into a career as the chief of this whole Federal Employee Relocation Center thing? I mean, and this is like such a unique situation that you're in too. Like, I kind of want to break it apart for people, because I don't think it's intuitive necessarily for a lot of people. So how did you jump from the military into civilian life doing this?
So it's kind of funny because they kind of dovetail into each other, to be honest. So that second time in between when I was in the Marine Corps, it was all active duty. I was 24/7 gone. I spent about 4 years out of my 6 years overseas. So I was just gone all the time pretty much. In the Guard, you do have a life. You do have a job, you do have a career outside of the military. You're what you're called a weekend warrior, and you go away for 2 weeks a year and you get activated for stuff, or you get deployed. So that happens a long way too. But all in all, you do kind of have your own personal life as well, that you live. So while I was doing this, I did work for another company called PageNet. Later got bought out by Arch Wireless. I was a major account manager, used to manage our major accounts. So I was used to doing a lot of customer support, customer management, high profile customers management. And so that second time that I was gone, when I was in the Middle East, I got a phone call about another position in the government. So I've never worked for the federal government outside the military up to that point. I worked civilian jobs. And so I had a friend, I think I told you before, that, we was in the military together, not deployed together, but we was just in the military before together. And he had a couple of positions open at Homeland Security at the TSA at the Dayton Airport. And so he reached out to me while I was actually deployed and said, hey, I've got this position. I think it'd be a good fit for you. I would like for you to maybe apply for it. And, let's see what happens. And I says, well, I already got a job. I already got this. He said, well, I'll just take a look at it. And so I did. And make a long story short, I applied for it and ended up getting the job while I was still on deployment. So I got hired by Homeland Security while I was on deployment in the Middle East.
Is that uncommon? It seems uncommon to hire somebody that's not even in the country.
Trust me, it was uncommon for me to even have an interview over in a GP tent over in the Middle East in my skivvies, having an interview overseas. So it was crazy. It was completely because it was so funny because when I was deployed we were 16 months on the ground. At that time we was only supposed to be like 7-8 months on the ground, and we ended up being 16 months. And so when he initially reached out to me, I was almost at the end of that, I think that initial 8 months. And so I was like, I'm getting ready to come home soon, whatever. Well, lo and behold, we kept getting extended because things started blowing up. So we started getting extended, and he kept pushing it back. And so it was just crazy. So the whole thing was unusual. And then even when I came back, now mind you, I've been gone for 19 months. And I think I took like a week and a half off before I started work. Yeah. Because I was gone for so long. I probably should have took at least 30, 45 days, to be honest, to kind of reacclimate myself. But I really came right back and came straight to work. And part of that was because I was gone for so long and we kept pushing it back, the start date for me to come there. And obviously the job was left out of position.
I gotta ask, what's that like being on deployment for, you said 19 months?
Yeah, 19 months total.
And when you, was this in Afghanistan?
So no, we was in Kuwait and Iraq. So the first 3 months, when we got called up, it was like February 2003. We got called up. We went to, and this is only the Army can do this, by the way. So we got called up because it's February now, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so we got called up in February to go to Fort McCoy, Wisconsin, to train up to go to the Middle East. Now you just kind of think about
February in Wisconsin. You're training in the snow and you're going to the sand.
Exactly. I'm like, only the Army can think of this stuff. So we went there and we were stuck there for 3 months training up to go over. Cause this is like right when the war was like really going on. And then by the time we got there, it like ended right as we got there, sort of was starting to end, and we started going into IEDs and convoy escorts. And that's a whole nother story. But at any rate, so we got there, trained up, and then got on the ground, and we were supposed to only have a 12-month deployment. So 3 months there at Fort McCoy and about 8-9 months on the ground. Well, that turned into 16 months on the ground and a 19-month deployment instead of a 12-month. But that's because I was a military police officer. Things started happening, and they needed more MPs, military police officers, to do convoy escorts and things like that. So we ended up staying a lot longer than expected.
I guess my thought was, how hard was that to readjust to like working in a office after being in the desert for 16 months, whatever it was?
You mean the PTSD? No, I'm joking.
I mean, all of it. Like, I can't even. I mean, it takes me 3 days after getting back from Florida to get used to working again. I don't know how that's just like a week of too much sunburn.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. You know what's crazy, Ben, is that when you do come back from that life, everything seems so petty. Mm-hmm. Like you go from being in the desert, you go from being in a combat area, you go from being where you don't know if you're going to come back or not, right? You don't know what's going to happen when you're deployed or what's going to happen, when you come back, or maybe you come back, but maybe you don't come back the person you left. You don't know how things are going to play out. Right. And so when you come back to like a setting, it could be life in general. It doesn't have to be just in an office setting, but life in general. If people complain about traffic, if people complain about the cubicle next door, if they complain about what's in the cafeteria for lunch when you've been eating MREs and crap, you're just kind of like, really? Is that the most important thing going on here?
You get it? Because you are like super chill. Like you are super chill, super like laid back, easy going. Is that where you get that perspective from, being in a combat zone for a year and a half?
I think so. I think it's been in the military period, because you get to see, for 20 years, I got to see the world. I got to see so many other cultures. I got to see experiences. I got to see how different people live. I got to see how people live way beneath the standard of living we have here in America that we take for granted. So it's just, I think it's all of it gives you perspective. And then, especially going through that and coming back, it really gives even more perspective. I just think the whole experience of seeing the rest of the world and seeing how a lot of third world countries live compared to how we live here. And I tease people, I say, America's the only country you can be poor and fat at the same time. Because you go to some countries, if you're poor, you're not eating. And I don't mean that in a humorous way. I mean that in a real way but here in America, you can be, look, you can be barely making it, but on my 600-pound life.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Man. All right. Perspective coming at you 100% real perspective coming at you right now. Leave it in the comments here. Okay. So you get back, so you take a week and a half, you go into the job though, but tell me how does and we've been talking a lot about personal stuff, but I do want to get into the real stuff. So how did your mobility career start?
Okay.
Tell me about the EPA's FERC and all that.
Okay. So after I came back, so the person that hired me there at Homeland Security after a year ended up leaving to go to EPA to become the branch chief. At that time, EPA did not have a relocation program. They were just making relocation payments. And so he came up with the idea that, hey, it would be kind of cool. And he was calling me. We always stayed in contact, even when I was deployed and when I was at Homeland Security, we stayed in contact. He said, hey, I got this idea that, I would like to build, where we do all the relocations here in Cincinnati for the EPA. Like we centralize the agency. Right now, the agency is just making payments, but all the other services are done throughout the regions and program office, and they're all doing it 23 different ways.
When you say just making payments, are you meaning like a lump sum? Are you meaning like, miscellaneous expense allowances? Like, what do you mean by just making payments?
They was just making a relocation payment. So it didn't matter what it was. So if it's a miscellaneous expense, if somebody went on a house hunting trip, if somebody went en route, the final thing that was done, they would turn in their vouchers and their receipts, and they would send that into Cincinnati. We were a federal payment center.
Okay.
That's what EPA relocation was before. It was just a federal payment center, and that was it. It didn't have any of the other components of managing the relocation process. So he thought, hey, if you come here, help consolidate this, be kind of the customer support, sales, business development, management part of this, and we can kind of build this program, build in the contracts, the services, hire counselors, do all that, then we can centralize the agency, and then maybe even a thought of maybe even going beyond that. But I think that the first idea was really just to centralize EPA and be able to do all the services within house, which we wasn't doing at that point.
So our corporate friends would call that creating a center of excellence. Right, kind of where you centralize everything, right?
Yeah.
And going from being a payment processing, center to actually administering the benefits. It sounds like, and sourcing them. Wow, that's a huge departure. That almost. And now at that point, was EPA doing that just decentralized, or was it 100% outsourced? And this was a bit of an in-source move. What was that transformation like?
So EPA at the time was just, like I said, just making payments. All the other contracts and services was done by the regions and program offices. The problem was they really wasn't doing a good job. It really wasn't any type of coordination in it. I don't know if half the time they were following the federal travel regulations. I don't know if the people that was doing it even knew what the federal travel regulations were, and everything. So what we brought to the table when we kind of brought it to the working capital fund, and I know we'll talk about that in a second, to actually really centralize this and make this kind of a business within the government, we brought the idea of actually bringing the contracts, the services, the counselors, the everything, but be the coordination of that for the entire agency, where it was a one-stop shop. Like you mentioned, Center of Excellence, we call it a Relocation Resource Center, is what we actually termed it at the time. And they thought it was a great idea. Because
now when you're pitching that, though, William, I got to ask you, because there's a ton of corporate folks out here all the time that, they're always trying to lower their costs. They're always trying to lower their overhead. They're always trying to, skinny down, right? And it seems like we've been going that way for decades now. Was this asking for more budget dollars?
It was actually asking for less when it came down to it, because what we found out when we first started and what part of my job was to find, okay, what are we doing today? What exactly are we doing today? And we reached out and found out all the people that was touching relocation. It was well over 100 and some people within EPA that was touching relocation. Wow. Now, we was only doing about maybe 40 to 50 moves per year, but we had 100 people touching relocation. And so it was very decentralized. It was very not cost effective the way that was being done. And that's really what we sold the agency on, was that, hey, we can centralize everything to a handful of FTE, which is full-time equivalents. We can bring all the contracts and services in place, and we can do it at a much lower cost. And we can also probably save from, with software and things like that, because the government, and still somewhat to this day, is very paper intensive, where they do a lot of pen to paper process of relocations. We wanted to do things more electronically. And so and obviously that was something that appealed to EPA because we're the environment, right? Saving trees. So,
right.
So we wanted to kind of pitch that as well. So we pitched savings, centralization, and also more efficiency as far as saving paper and being more efficient from an electronic standpoint. And, fortunately they bought it, I guess.
Yeah. So one last question about this before we kind of move on to now what it's grown into, because I talk to global mobility managers all the time that are constantly trying to make pitches about how they can transform their program. They are being tasked with creating these ROI cases, and it's really a challenge for folks to do because, I mean, to your point, 100 people were touching it. Well, what percentage of those 100 people was touching it, right? Because I know what that person's paid,
right.
but I don't know what percentage of their time is dedicated to it. Touching it? Are they holding it? Are they living with it? How much touching are they doing with it, right? And so I guess my question is, it seems like a heck of a case to have to build. How did, if you remember, it's probably been a long time, but I mean, just trying to provide some advice and some insights to people who might be watching this. How did you guys create that business case to say, I don't know, how did you do that? How did you show that ROI?
Yeah, we had to go in front of the board. So we had the Working Capital Fund Board is made up of 23 regions and program offices. So each of them have an assistant administrator that sits on that board. So we had to sell them on obviously the service. One of the things we sold them on too was that I think, to your point, to push that further, I think one of the things we had to sell to them was that we want to go external, and what that meant for them. Going external meant we could bring in more dollars from externally that could save them costs. So now they're thinking about their budgets as individuals, right? As individuals, regions, and program office. If you can save my budget money because you're going to be outsourcing the service and charging more externally than you do internally, that's to my benefit. Also, I know that it's getting done right. One of the things that also helped us during that time is right at the time that we started our program and did our pilot, is the Region 10 administrator had just got relocated and they completely messed it up. Like before, they completely messed it up. And one of the things they did is they gave them, it was a new appointee, so a political appointee, now we're in political season, and they appointed this person into the position and gave them relocation, and they gave them real estate. Now, if you know anything about federal government, new appointees do not receive real estate. Well, they didn't know that because they didn't have the expertise.
What do you mean they gave them real estate? You mean like they gave them a real estate benefit, like a home sale benefit or something like that? Or
they gave them where she could, I think in this case, she sold her house and then purchased a house where she was going to, and she got reimbursed for that, only to find out she had to pay that money back.
Ooh.
And so that person ended up leaving the agency, and it was a real black eye to the agency. And that just shows your lack of information and knowledge and expertise cost the agency money. So us coming along with the expertise, also on top of saving you ROI, return on investment and everything, was appealing at that time. I think, some things I think is good timing. And I think that was a situation where it was a multitude of factors that I think led to them really going with us. And
talk about the external customer thing, right? Because I think that is one of the most fascinating aspects of what you do at the FERC. And before you, I'm just going to remind everybody, hey, if you're watching right now, hit that like button, throw a little love out there to Cincinnati and William out there. Also, go ahead and put your comments and questions in the comments, and I would love to get to them all. In fact, I'm just going to do a quick little read here. We got Stacy from Quicken. What up, Stacy? Hi, William and Ben. Good to see you, Stacy.
Hi, Stacy.
Let's see, Francine. Hi, Ben. William and Jan checking in from St. Louis. William, thank you for your service. What a great example of leading your family.
Thanks.
I'm sure you do got a great family. Heather Jameson. Hi, Ben and William checking in from Global LT. What's up, Heather? Heather was on last week, I think. Francine, wow, this is a long time, William. Long time there, long time away from family. Yeah. For sure. Alan here checking in here. He was in Kuwait from 2003.
We might have been there at the same time.
In Iraq in March when they did put the push forward. Yeah. Beth saying great perspective, William. Yeah, leave those comments and questions because I think what we're about to get into is super interesting. So, William, one of the things I find super fascinating about the EPA's FERC is it's a federal agency, which when you hear federal agency, you think, okay, they're a client of relocation services for their employees. Well, yeah, I guess y'all do that. But you also took a different look at it And maybe it was in order to stand this up and to create the ROI case, but you guys also sell your services to other agencies.
Yes.
How does that work?
Yeah. So when we was going through that process of selling EPA and centralizing internally, I think, like I said, through kind of presentations and having to try to sell this, to our agency and what was the benefit for them, the concept came up, well, why don't we sell this externally? And that, yeah, you're right. That was such a foreign concept.
It was a foreign concept, right?
It definitely was a foreign concept. It was someone out there doing it, though. That probably helped us as well, that we knew that was somebody out there doing it, and it could be done. Of course, we didn't know a lot about that, but we knew that was being done. But we also thought, we wanted to see, if we felt like if this was really good for the agency, if it was going to save the agency money, if it was going to help federal employees, why not sell it to other federal agencies? Why not make this available, especially for agencies? But one thing that we found out, and I know before when we've talked about this before, back in 2005, there was this report called the GRAD report, which is the Governmentwide Relocation Advisory Board report. And that came out right before
the Government Relocation Advisory Board report.
The Governmentwide Relocation Advisory Board, and it was a group of government professionals and private sector relocation professionals that came together to talk about how things have been done in government, how government could do things better. So I kind of came along at a perfect time, because that report was done by the time I came aboard, and that was the first thing I read. So I didn't have any like pre-set mindset of how things were supposed to work. I was just coming in cold. In reading that, one of the things it talked about was the government actually establishing relocation resource centers where they could provide the service for other federal agencies. So instead of just government being dependent on RMCs to manage their programs, that federal agencies could manage their own programs and also be a resource center for other federal agencies. That made a lot of sense to me. So when I read that, I thought, well, this makes a lot of sense. And, why don't we take a look at that? And then we did. And we were just really fortunate that at the time I went off to federal travel regulation training in DC. And the guy, and I'm not making this stuff up, man. The guy that I sat next to was a guy from the agency that I just left, from TSA. So I had just left TSA to come over to EPA, and I go to a federal training and I sit next to a guy from TSA, and he's in the relocation program, office, and they need an RMC. Wow. And we just hit it off and start. I says, well, I says, I mean, honestly, how you starting off something, you don't really know exactly what you're doing, but you're talking like you know what you're doing. That's kind of where I was at. I'm at the training. Hey, just so you know, we're doing that at EPA. We're selling our service to other federal agencies. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah, And so we had lunch together and talked about it. And he said, well, you need to come over to my office. Like, yeah, because I've been over there plenty of times before. I'll gladly go over there. And so we went over there, met some people and everything. And to make a long story short, they end up becoming our first customer.
Wow.
And they're still a customer to this day. So TSA is still one of ours. So we move all their federal air marshals. We move all their international people at the airports. We move all their screeners and airport security directors and things. So yeah, we still move all the TSA to this day. But yeah, so that's how we got into it. And then from there, it just became more of, getting our name out there, meeting with other agencies and everything, and learning. And what I've really learned, to be honest, Ben, is that a lot of federal agencies, sort of like EPA, they was where EPA was at. So I can relate to their pain in the sense that, they're decentralized, they're pen to paper. They don't really have a coordinated program. They don't have counselors on staff. And you said something earlier that was key. Yeah, 100 people was touching those relocations, but none of them was touching it 100%, right? They had other jobs and responsibilities. So they really was never experts managing the process. It was people just doing it on the side as kind of a collateral duty. And that's what you see in other federal agencies too, is that it's sort of like a collateral duty for other people. Whereas for us, we're 100% full-time relocation. And that becomes a really big selling point for agencies that, hey, we can have somebody that actually know what they're doing, manages for us, not charges a lot of money, because we're not looking to make a profit. We're just looking to cover our costs and break even. So that's another thing too. We are a profit center, but we're not, in a sense that, because we're not trying to drive profitability. We're just trying to drive to cover our costs for our overhead.
And we've got some really good questions here, but I got a question. Are you a GSA schedule holder then to provide relocation services, or do you are not required because you are an agency?
No, we're a federal agency. So we use some of the GSA Schedule Services, but we're not a GSA schedule. We're not tied to the GSA in that way. We're independent agency. We enter into what's called interagency agreements with other federal agencies. So it's an agency between EPA and that agency to do business together, basically, and for us to charge them for the service, and for them to obviously pay us for the services. Excuse me. And then we have the authority to do that through our working capital fund authority.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, and I've got questions about this as well, and I'd love to hear your questions too. If you're watching this right now, go in the comments, leave a comment or a question for William. We got about 20 minutes left here, so let's see what we can get answered. Jack Jampel says, William, agree that timing was right for change, and looks like you were very good at presenting your business case in dollars and cents. That's always the key to Jack is ROI. Thanks for your service. Jack's always pushing me to really be more talking in more terms of dollars and cents, be more specific about things. Victoria McCullough has a question. Were your relocation policies and initiatives ever affected by the political climate, past and present, since you are a government agency? How does the administration affect your what you do?
Really, it doesn't affect us at all, because since we're working capital fund activity, we have authority that's separate with that allows us to do what we do. No administration has came in and tried to change that. I would say that when we first started, the administration that was in at the time, this was pre-Obama administration, so we've been in Bush, that political appointee really supported us in what we were doing, because they thought that made good business. He was a businessman, so the CFO at the time was a businessman, and he said, well, this makes sense. You're bringing something to the government that's going to save the government money. It's cost efficient. You're trying to bring efficiency into the government, so it makes sense. And he pretty much signed right off on it. It was a harder sell at a lower level than it was when we actually met with him and everything. So not really a lot. The only thing that kind of impacts us, obviously, changing from administration to administration, is that we have to move them. We actually have to relocate them and provide the services to them. And so obviously you want to, get off to a good start, with their administration and relocating and providing a good service. But as far as them coming in and changing things, I would say it really doesn't. The only time it would affect us, I would say indirectly, is on budgets.
I was going to say,
yeah.
Oh, EPA budget cuts, or other agency budgets are cut or whatever.
Yeah, that's when it has an effect. So it doesn't affect us from a policy standpoint directly as a program, but as an agency, like when I first started, EPA was moving about 50, 60 people. And at one point we was moving down in the 20s. So that was a budget impact affected that. And then some of our other customers had the same thing, depending on which agency, Homeland Security wasn't getting budget cuts. So their budget was fine. So it depends on the agency, depends on the customer. For EPA as an agency, yes, obviously, depending on which administration that wants to make budget cuts, based on that could have an impact as far as the number of people that we move, and could affect, those program offices for moving their personnel.
We'll talk about relocation policies, right? Because part of Victoria's questions here is around the relocation policies, and I think what she probably means by that is relocation benefits, right? Like what types of benefits are these federal employees, entitled to, and do you see those changing over the years? Have there been trends in terms of those, or changes to federal travel regulations that may have impacted those? What do you see from a relocation policy and benefit?
Yeah, I would say from a political standpoint, none. I mean, I don't think that the only thing that's really have changed policy wise over the last several years has been on the taxes. That the tax benefit has changed. Now, before, a new appointee could not receive a withholding tax allowance or RETA. Well, now they can receive a withholding tax allowance, which is key, to be able to gross up that, that cost, was before it wasn't even taxable.
So withholding tax allowance is basically a gross up. Is that correct?
Exactly. That's another word for gross up for you in the private sector. And then we have a RETA, which I think the private sector use RETA, right? Relocation income tax allowance, on the back end to kind of even out that gross up. So that would probably be the only thing that I would say from policy standpoint that's been impacted, based on administrations and things like that, but not anything as far as like that hit GSA, I would say, that changed the home sale program or changed temporary quarters or changed something like that. COVID has probably had more of an impact than anything as far as changing policies within government. As far as
How
that,
so?
yeah, because how so good? So now we can go beyond the number of days that a person, if it's COVID related, if a person goes on a house hunting trip and they're delayed, let's say they can't get back from their house hunting trip, we can go beyond the 10-day house hunting trip. There was a bill that was submitted, I don't think it's been passed at this point, about trying to extend temporary quarters beyond 120 days for federal employees. That hasn't happened yet, but at least there's been a bill submitted to look at doing that. The tax impact, like I talked about earlier. So I think it's been more, COVID has really had probably a bigger impact than I would say from an administration standpoint on our policies.
Yeah, I want to talk about some of those policies and how you do what you do here. Henri says, interesting discussion. I'm wondering if something similar in purpose to what you do could be transposed over here in the EU. Yeah, have you heard of any other governmental agencies that stand up interagency relocation services?
For like internationally?
Yeah,
like
anywhere.
I've never heard like say Canada or something or anything like. Obviously, we move people internationally, but I've never heard of other federal government agencies doing what we do in other countries. At least I don't know of any. If they're out there, I haven't talked to them before.
Well, now, what are some of the reasons why an agency would use the EPA's FERC as opposed to maybe using another RMC or something? What are some of the value propositions you see, or some of the ways that maybe you do things differently?
Yeah, I think, I mean, there's a lot, to be honest, because there's a lot of things that we can do. Obviously, we go out to procure the services and contracts that they're going to use. So instead of them having to go out for procurement, we've already done it. We already have the contracts and the service in place. Actually, we probably have a lot more contracts and services in place. But I would say the biggest thing really, and obviously we experience this too. So when we go out for a bid for procurement or something, that's a long process. And I've been through a few of those. So when you go through an RFP process, I mean, this, it's competitive. It's a long process. You have to go through your contracts office. There's legal that gets involved. And it's a ton of work, right? So, we take all that work away because an agency don't have to go through any of that. We have to go through it, but they don't have to go through it. So the only thing that they have to do in working with us is a simple interagency agreement. And what's cool about that is that we get to come together and actually speak to the statement of work. We get to breathe life into the statement of work. You tell us what you want. We tell you what we can do. And we get to kind of partner together in developing that statement of work versus you kind of developing a statement of work in a vacuum and then putting it out there to RMCs to bid on it and hope you get back what you're looking for. That's what I feel like what happens a lot of times.
I mean, what you're saying is coming in like in advance of what the RFP would do. So you collaborate on the actual agreement or contract together, whereas we just hope and pray that they got the RFP right, and then we have to go and compete for that. And it seems like you shorten the amount of time as well tremendously
Big
that
time.
it would take to actually improve the program.
Big time.
Yeah, that's so interesting. But now you also work with RMCs as well. So in a way, you kind of are an RMC, but you also work with RMCs. How does that work?
Yeah, we have to work with them to deliver our service. And there's a lot of services we do provide in-house. So we do all the counseling. We do all the consulting. I mentioned earlier, we started off as a payment center. We're still a payment center. We do all the payments. We do all the W-2s. We do all the RETAs. We do the gross ups. We create the authorizations. We create all the vouchers. So there's a ton of work that we do. We pay all the state taxing authorities, the IRS, Social Security. We take care of, we withhold payments and send it to the state and taxing authorities. So we do a ton of work. But of course, there's certain things we can't do. So we can't, get a truck and ship household goods. We can't do that. We're not going to pull up at your house and say, hey, you ready to go? We're going to load you up. We can't do that. We can't, put a house on the market and sell it. And we don't, and the government doesn't buy houses neither, by the way. That's a big distinction between the corporate side. So we have to have an RMC that supports that and actually they buy the house basically. And then sell it to the outside, to the outside buyer. So those very specific services, we get RMCs or relocation companies, whatever you want to call them, to help support us in those services. But what we do that makes us, I think, obviously unique is that what I've compared to other agencies, I feel like a lot of agencies just turn things over to the RMC and kind of walk away and go to sleep. Whereas we actively are coordinating and kind of the process is completely going through us. We're kind of managing the entire process from A to Z. The RMCs are just in between to take care of certain steps and certain things that we can't do, but they're not managing the process and they're not responsible for the process as well. We are. And so that's probably the big difference, that we take ownership. I mean, if TSA is going to get mad at somebody, they're going to get mad at us. You know, they may have an issue with the RMC, but they're going to take that issue with us and not with the RMC. And so we have to address it and we have to deal with that.
Interesting. So how do you do things like home sale differently maybe than we might be used to on the corporate side?
So there's a couple things. I don't know. This one thing that I came up with early on the home sale program, because I started back in 07, 09 when the market kind of tanked, and I learned a lot from that experience. And I think we learned a lot as a program, that experience. So we did what's called a Preclearance Program. So before somebody can come into our home sale program, we actually do a pre-clearance to make sure they're going to qualify to even be in the home sale program. We don't wait until we put out a bid to an RMC and then have them work with them only to find out they're upside down in their mortgage, or to find out that they don't have title to the home or full title to the home. We do all that up front. So we're asking all those questions through our pre-clearance program up front to make sure they're going to qualify before they come in. So we have a very low disqualification rate on the back end for that. So that's one thing that we do. The other thing that we do, we use multiple providers. We learned from the first time when the market collapsed, some of the agency wasn't financially, basically was not financially solvent and had to come off schedule. And so we didn't want that to happen. So we have multiple awards to multiple RMCs that we do through the home sale program. And the other thing is we actually compete each and every task order that we submit at the task order level. So to make sure that we're getting the best pricing for our customers, that we're going to pass along that savings. That goes back to that savings and return on investment, that we can literally show agencies how we're going to save them tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on their home sale program based on the way we manage it versus the way they're currently doing it today.
What do you think the biggest thing that could save them that money is? I mean, give us some insight and advice here for people out there that are kind of going through this and administering this. I mean, how do you manage to save them that kind of money? That's significant.
We specifically look at what are their ratios. So what is your BVO amended to your appraised ratios? Okay. The more we can drive BVO amended ratios versus appraised ratio, we're going to save you tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on that alone. The second thing that we're doing is looking at competing that task order. So if we're sending a task order out to 3 different providers and we're getting the best price every single time on that task order, then we're going to show the savings that we're saving on each and every task order that you send into us. And so we have literally shown agencies where, okay, this is how you're doing it today. Okay. And this is what you're paying today. This is how we do. We take the same information. This is how we do it. And here's what we pay on average. Here's our BVO to amended ratios to appraised ratios, which will save you this much money. And then here's what we're saving per task order per order. And it's what will save you over what you're paying today. And it's just clear. It's clear as night and day. And so going back to your RI question, that's a very clear way. Using our home sale program, we can show agencies how we can save them a lot of money by working with us.
Wow. I can imagine that's just like super compelling. That's really fascinating, William. Gosh, there's you're making my mind go in a million different directions here. Annette Walters chiming in here, managing process from A to Z. What do you do for your individual clients that a traditional RMC does not serve them, if anything? Yeah, interesting. What do you do for your individual clients that a traditional RMC does not do?
So what do you do for your client that a traditional does not serve them? So I think if it's somebody that's not in our relocation program, what do we do for an individual that say wants some services? So if people do, we can refer. Somebody like needs to ship some household goods, but want to use somebody. They're not getting money for relocation benefits, but they still want to, ship some household goods. We can, refer our RMCs, for that purposes. Same thing with a home sale. Same thing for lending service. We actually on the EPA website. On the intranet site, we actually make it available for EPA employees that are relocating, but we also make it for non-relocating EPA employees as well, where they can take advantages of some of those services if they want to.
Nice. All right. Let's see here. Mena has a question. What makes the federal rely on you and not the RMC directly, other than managing the process? Yeah, because there are agencies out there that contract with RMCs.
Yeah.
But you think that maybe you've had that success, getting that business?
Yeah, well, most companies or most agencies, to answer Minna's question, do actually rely on RMCs. We're kind of the outlier. What would make them come to us versus using an RMC? And I think I kind of outlined some of those earlier. They don't have to go through the whole RFP process that they got to go to with an RMC to get an RMC, which is labor intensive, time intensive, and knowledge intensive. And like you said, if what you're hoping as an RMC is that they do the RFP correctly, what if they don't? So then you're going to have a problem when that thing is awarded. And so I think we make it easier for agencies to work with us, to be honest. And even though most of them still will work with the RMC and probably prefer to because they're used to it, but I do think we do make it easier because we work all that out in the background and they don't have to be concerned about it.
All right. So this has been a lot of fun, but we're going to have even more fun right now. Okay. So we have 2 top 5s today. Okay. But we only have time for 1. So I want you, the audience, to vote. Okay. We're going to do a quick one. Do you want to do a top 5 on travel or do you want to do a top 5 on TV? Okay. So just throw in the comments real quick. So if you're listening to this right now, I want you to put in the comments either TV or travel. Okay. We're going to hear William's top 5 on either TV shows or travel. Just throw that in the comments here. Okay. We're going to take one more little comment from Tom as people are starting to vote. So vote now. We're going to give a 30-second on that. Victoria McCullers, since most RMCs charge referral fees and share that with the client to offset costs, do you get referral fees?
No, we don't. We can't do that. The government can't do it. Now, our RMCs get referral fees, of course, and I understand what she's asking, but we as a government cannot accept or collect referral fees. All
right, let's see here. Tom Bruin, people are voting right now. Keep the votes coming. Tom Bruin says, federal RFPs often require compliance with federally mandated platforms that can be cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So let's see here. Let's do a quick little count here. Dan says TV. Annette says TV. Mario says travel. Joanna says travel.
Travel. Okay.
Beth says TV. That's
TV.
3. Travel 3. Victoria 4. Tim
TV.
5. TV. It is
TV. Let's do it. Let's do it.
With a TV.
People want to know what I watch for TV.
People do. They want to know.
They don't want to know what countries I've been to.
They don't care.
They don't care. Who cares where you've been?
Tell me something I can do this afternoon, okay? Don't tell me about Finland, all right? What's on television tonight?
All right, let's do this. This should be fun, man.
All right, top 5. We got a top 5. Stacy, our producer backstage, top 5 TV shows I love to watch.
Yeah.
Top 5. Now, is this your top 5 or is Allison in this?
No, this is me. This is her top 5 would be completely different. Trust me. Matter of fact, I get criticized for this top 5 half the time. So let's go.
Oh, you're gonna get criticized if you know anything about top 5s on this show. There's going to be some critique. Okay,
I can take it. I can take it.
All right, splendid. Let's go. Top 5 TV shows I love to watch by William Wiggins. Number 5.
How to Get Away with Murder, man. Love that show, man. First off, I have to admit, I like intrigue. I like suspense. I like thrillers. I like crazy people. I like things.
That's why you're on this show right now.
That's why I'm on this show right now, man. I like crazy people. I'm half crazy, so it all works together. So How to Get Away with Murder, man. Well, first of all, I love Viola Davis. She's just, oh my God, you can put her and Denzel in anything and it's good, right? So I just love her as an actress. I love the way, she just handles her business. And I just love the show, but I love intrigue of how things, happen and why people do what they do. And so I probably should have been a psychiatrist or something, but so that's why I love that show. I love the intrigue, and why would you kill somebody and try to get away with it? I don't know.
Well, it's better than not trying to get away with it. Anyway, this is also a Shonda Rhimes show, I believe. And I think she did Scandal and she did I don't know, maybe Little Fires. I don't know. But anyway, Shonda Land, this is great stuff. It's a little dark for me. I'll be honest with you. It's a little too crazy. I draw the line to Scandal. Oh, it gets worse.
It gets worse. Yeah. It gets worse. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. All right. Cool. All right. Number 4.
90 Day Fiance, man. Have you ever seen this show?
No, 90 Day Fiance though. Like I feel like proposition. Like you already bought the ring. I mean, 90 days. That's it. I mean, I don't know. What's this about? Tell me the premise.
It's okay. First, it just intrigued me because I didn't think it was real. I didn't think people get married in 90 days. But what it is people, man, and it's international. So I love international stuff too, by the way, obviously. So it's somebody that's probably from America. They're seeing somebody over in another foreign country, and they fall in love online. Basically, they've never met each other, probably in most cases, and they want to bring them over on what's called a K-1 visa. I had no clue what a K-1 visa was before I watched this show. I thought it was a joke, but you get a K-1 visa for somebody over in, let's say, Iran, and you bring them over and you got 90 days to get married, and you have to. Visa's only good for 90 days. You have to get married at 90 days. Man, all the drama that comes with that, man, it's just hilarious. It's funny. It's the cultural clashes and cultural differences and everything. I like to watch stuff also to entertain me. This is very entertaining, trust me. So I love it. It's crazy. Anybody that watches know what I'm talking about. So my wife loves this program. There you go. Me and your wife right there.
Yeah, Valerie says it's hilarious, like watching a train wreck.
It is. It's funny, man. I love watching train wrecks. I'm crazy like that.
Oh, people are digging this. Look at this. People have so many comments on this. Okay.
I love that show too, Married at First Sight. That was one of my favorites too. I forgot all about that one. But yeah, that could be top 6. Yeah.
Yeah. People are loving this right now. Your number 4 is really popular. I've never heard it. Is it on? Where do I find it? Where do I find the show?
It should be on HDTV. It should be on HDTV. And by the way, I don't watch nothing live. I record stuff, so I just watch it when I can get to it. But yeah, this is one of the shows I love. I when I get to the weekend, I get some time. I'm like, okay, I gotta watch my 90-Day Fiance and catch up what's going on with these crazy people lives, man. I gotta catch up on what's going on, man. I gotta get up for it. But go ahead.
This is great. Number 3.
Okay. The Walking Dead, man. That's just an old classic, right? Everybody loves The Walking Dead. You know, Rick Grimes. You know, everybody loves that, man. Maggie. So that's just an old. Now this is one that Alice got me hooked on too.
Okay.
Me and Alice don't tend to watch the same shows. We tend to watch like she watched old westerns and old 1915 movies. That's what she likes. That put me to sleep. I gotta watch some excitement and some things flying. So Walking Dead, you know, it's cool. You got zombies, you got crazy things going on, you got crazy groups turning on each other and stuff and everything. Right up my alley. And then figure out how to survive all of it. So,
I didn't get it. I didn't really get into the show. I'll be honest with you. When this came out, my sister-in-law was in it. My wife was like, I don't know, man. I feel you, but I just can't get down with it.
Yeah. Alice got me hooked. I just say that Alice got me hooked on that one.
Yeah, people that love The Walking Dead. I mean, this was like the zombie apocalypse. Like this really set off this whole zombie thing. All right. Number 2.
All right. House Hunters International, man. Love that show. As you can see, there's a lot of international theme in here. I love, you know what I love? Because I've been so many places. I love to see how other cultures live. I love to see how other people live. And then in this case, it's literally like an American saying, you know what? I'm just going to leave the country and live somewhere else. And I'm so intrigued by what goes into that decision. How do they come to that? Like I could see myself living in another country. I wouldn't be shocked if I at some point live in another country or live in both America and here. That wouldn't be unusual for me to want to do. And so actually I'm watching them to see how they do it, how they decide where they want to live, what properties want to buy, how you buy a property in a foreign country and everything. So I'm just real intrigued by it. Matter of fact, this I would say, outside this one I'm about to say, this would be my number 1 show. I love this show the most. Yeah.
Well, that's why it's number 2. Now
let
me ask you a follow-up question.
Yeah.
You say you could see yourself living in another country. What country would you live in if you had a second house or just moved completely?
Uganda.
Yeah.
Uganda. Cost of the mission work that we do and everything. Yeah. Uganda. I mean, but I could live other places too. There's some other places I could live that are out there that I really like as well. Costa Rica's one that I really like when I watch that show. Thailand. I love Thailand. I've been there a couple times. I would love to go back to Thailand and everything. But at the end of the day, I think my roots would be in Uganda if it came down to it.
Awesome. Fantastic. All right, let's get to number 1.
Okay, here it is, man. Snapped, man. Do you know that show?
Snap? I don't even know.
You don't know what Snap is? Oh my God. Dude, I was watching this show before I came on this show. You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh. I'm looking at it right now.
I got to tell you this quickly.
Yeah,
so Snapped is a show, and they're all women, by the way, so Alice hates it. So they're all women that murder typically their husbands or boyfriends or something like that. And the thing that's intriguing about it for me, is that it's women that you would never suspect. So I always tease Allison and say, yeah, you would be on this show. Like I wouldn't be on this show, but you could be on the show because nobody would ever suspect it, right? You're a social worker, you're sweet, you're the loving wife, you're the loving, mom and everything. But she, slit her husband's throat last night. So, that's so Snap.
I don't let my wife watch any of these shows. Honestly, if she ever asks me, I'm like, no, honey, it's got too many knives, got too much beef right now. We're not watching Snap. We're not watching any of this stuff on. No ideas here.
Yeah. She thinks I'm crazy because I say, yeah, babe, I need to watch it because it calms me down. It relaxes me. It makes me chill out, to watch Snap. Because I get to see, okay, I'm not that crazy after all, because I would never do that. But boy, there's people out there that actually plot and plan to, murder their.
You said these are all women.
So
it's not about if you would never do that.
No. Yeah, exactly. So that's what. So I sleep with one eye open. I'm like, I gotta watch out just in case. She could be on Snap.
Now I realize why you wake up so early in the morning.
I do wake up before her every morning. I got to be sure. I got to check around, make sure everything's good. So yeah. But yeah, I love it, man. I love that show. Once again, it's intriguing, it's thrilling, it's got a plot, and everything. And not that I'm not condoning murder, by the way, everybody. But in case you was wondering, the guy from EPA is not condoning murder. But I do love the show.
Relocation.
It's cheaper than a relo. It really is. Plus, you get an insurance policy at the end. So there you go.
Gosh.
Yeah, anyway.
Gosh.
That's my crazy top 5, man. That's my crazy top 5. Yeah.
That was awesome. That was funny. People are noting here that number 5 and number 1 are murder shows. Not saying nothing, just saying. Mary Lisa's, my Dutch colleague, was on International House Hunters.
Oh, really? Wow.
William Keating also was on International House Hunters too with
ESP
in Nagoya. Yeah.
Nice. So, very nice. Very nice.
This is awesome. This has been a lot of fun. Big shout out to everybody that got in on the conversation out there, leaving questions and comments. Love that. I love it when you guys leave comments out there. It's so much fun. Hit that like button, throw a little love out there to William. William, I'm going to ask you, leave us with a final thought or final word, if you don't mind. Just close us down.
I would say, one of the things I'm just that I was hoping to talk about is just, what do we do now that, we're in the pandemic, and what do we do post-pandemic? How do we operate? How do we move forward? And, I think we've learned a lot, during this time, working from home. I spend a lot of time with my spouse because she's working from home too, and everything. So that's been a wonderful experience and everything. And I feel so blessed, that I do get to do what I do here at EPA. I get to do this from home too at this point because of COVID. I get to be close to my wife and my son. Sort of what I told you in the beginning of when I was deployed and all that. I value my family so much. I value being around them, even if it's, we're around each other working. I value that time, and I appreciate that God has blessed me to be in a position to do what I do for a living, and blessed me to be in a position where, I live this life that, I get to live and do with my family, whether it be what I do at work or even what we do after, off work with our mission work and things like that, which about and everything. I get to do that with my family and my wife as well. And so I'm a very blessed man. And I thank you for having me on the show, because I think the world of you too. And I think you're doing great things. And I'm very proud of you. I'm very proud of what you're doing right now, by the way. So I just want to say that to you as well.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you, William. And I'm proud to call you a friend and a mentor. And I'm very proud of you too, and everything you and Allison are doing. It's great to have you on the show. I wish you the best. You're extremely blessed, as am I. And you've been a blessing in my life. So thank you so much for doing that. And thanks to everybody that tuned in today. Hope you tune in tomorrow. We have Erica Burton from Chase, who's one of my favorite people to just kind of cut up with and have some fun. She's going to be on tomorrow telling her story. We've got Hosea Botley also. And if you like TV shows about expats, we've got Juanita Ingram on Friday from Expat Ingrams, which is a show about a family who's an expat in Taiwan. And we got Juanita, who is the mom in the real life drama that is Expat Ingrams, which I think you can only watch on like YouTube right now because it's like blacked out in the US. So must be super cool. I don't know. Anyway, look forward to seeing y'all this week. I will be off Thursday because I will be moving, doing relocation stuff. But take care, everybody. We will see you tomorrow. Take care.